Man, they got hella. Whew. Anyway, what it do, E-World, Crisscross and Wires, back with another video. And today, I want to speak on motors just a little bit. Just like with everything else, there may be some people that don't really know a whole lot about motors. So I just want to make a quick little video on some of the basics. And yeah, maybe that'll help somebody out. But before I get to that, I just want to say this. Because I have I'm not going to say a lot, but a few new subs on my channel. And, I just want to tell those guys to not take all of what you may be seeing seriously. There are people that have been on my channel from like day one. Some of them know and understand why my channel has taken a weird turn that it has taken. And then, there's others that are clueless, don't really know and don't understand and just assume. Okay. For one, I'm a serious tech head. I love technology. Okay. So when I'm showing tech and showing, speaking about stuff that I'm doing, never ever, although it may appear that way, am I ever trying to show off or, belittle anyone or act like I have more than anyone else. That is simply not the case. I am who I am, and I make no excuses for any of that. At the same time, I just don't want people to think that, yeah, man, this guy's an asshole, always on some flex type bullshit. Honestly, that's, I started getting a whole bunch of hate and negativity in my comment section from trolls. And, at one time, it was really bad. And I know I should have ignored that, but it was a little hard to ignore. So instead, what I did was figured that, hey, if they gonna hate, I'll give them something to hate on. That might not have been that might not have been the right way to go about things, but, that's what I did. And, hey, it is what it is. But I don't have no problem starting my channel all over again from zero. You know what I'm saying? If anybody don't want to be here, don't like me, or don't like my channel or what I do, hey, unsub. Because I think some people got it twisted as though I need help which I don't. Now, I'm going to do what I do regardless. I would love to have a successful YouTube channel and following, but I'm not begging nobody for anything. All right, I want people to be here because they want to be here. All right, that being said, like I said, I'm a tech guy, so know when I'm speaking on stuff, I'm speaking on it from a tech guy's viewpoint. I just don't go about these things half-ass willy-nilly. I do my homework and research because I do my best to have or make things perform the best they can. All right. Now, let's talk about motors just a little bit. Now, when it comes to motors, they're going to be just a few things you need to know, because people always ask, well, how much power can this motor handle, or what voltage can it handle? And honestly, guys, not most motors can handle far more power than what they're actually being rated at. Sometimes motors are being rated solely based on the controllers that they are paired with or the bike that they are installed on. You know what I'm saying? You may have the same exact motor on a 5,000 watt bike as you have on a 10,000 watt bike. And the only difference being is the controller and how many amps is actually pushing to that motor and how much power it's producing. But the exact same motor, even down on the lower powered bikes like the 1500 watt motors, the 2000 watt motors. At the end of the day, a lot of those are the same motors on different bikes and they're rated at different power levels. All right. Most of the time, well, let me tell you from my experience what I've seen. When I first started out, the very first motor I bought was a off-brand Chinese no-name motor. In fact, that's the stator to it right there. Uh, it's a 3,000 watt motor as it comes. I also ended up buying after that a 5,000 watt motor. It's on a bike outside, but I can tell you the only difference between that cheap 3,000 watt motor and the 5,000 watt motor was the phase wires. Okay, the phase wires on the 5,000 watt motor were obviously a heavier gauge, which allowed more current to flow to that motor. As far as the inner workings of that motor, the inner components, the magnets, the coils, the gauge of wire on the coils, hall sensors, the magnet sizes, stator size, everything was exactly the same. Okay, I promise you, the only difference in those was phase wise. Uh, Even the better motors, pretty much the same thing. A lot of the QS motors, the 3,000 watt 205 and the 5,000 watt 205, same motor, thicker phase wise, same coil, same magnet, same everything. Now, usually when they upgrade a motor to handle higher power or more power, they increase the size of the magnets, the width of the magnets, and the width of the stator. So when you see a motor that's has like 50H on it, like that motor has 50H, they're talking about the width of the magnets. Now the physical stationary earth magnets are mounted inside the hub cabinet around the edges, but they're normally the same width as the stator. So a 50H motor, the width of this stator is 50 millimeters, okay? That's how that works. So if it's a 40H, the width of this is 40 millimeters. The width of the magnets inside the case is 40 millimeters, all right? So that's what they mean by the 40H and the 50H, the width of the magnets. As far as when you see 3.5T, 5T, 2T, that is how many turns is on the stator. So a 3.5T means there's 3.5 turns of the coil wires. Now, hopefully you can see, lighting's not that good. Now, going around this stator, there are coils that are wrapped around these little iron bars. All right. Now, this motor, if it's a 3T, it has 3 turns. 3 turns. You see these little separated sections here. There's 3 turns of that copper wire going around each one of those. All right. If it's a 3.5T, it's a 3.5 turn. If it's a 5T, they got 5 turns around it. That's what the 5T part means, or the T part, the turns. Like I was talking about the thickness of the phase wires that go to your motor. Um, the green, yellow, and blue wire that is normally, you know, running to the motor that comes from your controller. Those are the phase wires. The thickness or the gauge of those determines how much current can actually flow to that motor. Now, like I told you, a 3 kilowatt and a 5 kilowatt, the internals are exactly the same. The width of the magnet's exactly the same. The gauge of the copper wire that's inside of there, exactly the same. Only difference, phase wise. Trust me. So, just like this RZ that is about to pull up any minute now, it's supposed to be here today. Uh, the first modification I'm going to do, and I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up at different upgrades for each and everybody. Everybody might not be able to do all of the upgrades, but I'm going to show you some upgrades that you can do without spending hardly any money at all. And the first thing you can do is increase the size of those phase wires that come on that motor. That stock motor in that RZ, the phase wires on that thing, matter of fact, they might be smaller than this. They're probably about the same size, because this is a 3000 watt QS motor. So as you can see, 3000 watt motor, those phase wires aren't very large. They're either 8 or 10 gauge, very small. So you can start off by initially upgrading those phase wires so more current can flow. And once you do that, that 3000 watt motor should be able to handle the same amount of current and produce the same amount of power as a 5000 watt motor. All right. Now, the difference in a 5000 watt and an 8000 watt motor would be the size of the magnets. Now these magnets on this motor are probably 40 millimeter, so that motor would be a 40H, and this is an 8000 watt motor, and it has 50 millimeter size magnets in there. Let's see, what else can I speak on about these motors? As far as also inside of your motors are Hall sensors. Hall sensors are actually transistors. Okay, sorry guys. I was talking about Hall sensors. Hall sensors actually are tiny transistors. Transistors normally amplify power. However, there are different types of transistors. There are switching transistors, which can be used to turn different circuits on and off. These transistors are actually field effect transistors. Field effect transistors meaning they switch and respond to magnetic fields. All right, so what they actually do, there's 3 of them in your motor, and there's one on each phase wire. Not the phase wire, I'm sorry, the Hall sensor wires. The Hall sensor wires, there's 3 of them. 3 of them the same color as the motor phase wire. So you'll have a blue, a green, and a yellow Hall sensor wire. And what that does is where the Hall sensors are normally mounted into the stator, like they'll be spaced apart, and there'll be like 3 of them on the stator, like right there where my fingers are. And what that does is tell the controller the position of the motor. All right, as the motor rotates around, those field effect transistors will let the controller know, at which point the motor is as far as its revolutions. All right, that's how it communicates and lets the controller know what the motor is doing. That's how they determine your RPM and your wheel speed, depending on how fast those transistors are switching and sending those signal back to your controller. A lot can be determined from the the hall sensors, that's what they do. Okay, when you got a bad hall sensor, most of the time it's going to cause your motor to either stop working completely, depending on the controller. Some controllers need signal from them hall sensors, or they will shut down or go into protection. Some controllers can run without hall sensors. They can run sensorless. All right, but most of them are going to have an issue when there's a problem with the hall sensor. Either your bike might start jittering. If you got a bike that won't throttle up, it won't accelerate. When you go to hit the throttle, it's jittering. That's a bad hall sensor. If you got a bike that won't move at all, that's a bad hall sensor. If you got a bike that the wheel will spin when there's no load on it, meaning when you pick the back of the bike up and there's no weight on the bike, the motor is spinning. As soon as you try to sit on the bike, it won't move. Bad hall sensor. Okay, now hall sensors can easily be replaced. Obviously, you got to take the motor apart to get to them, but once you get to them, they're not hard to replace. However, it is a tedious job. Transistors have 3 little legs on them, and they are very small, very close together. When you replace those, you have to use heat shrink tubing and everything to isolate those legs, make sure they don't touch. You got an emitter, base, and collector on there, and the way they are positioned, they have to go back exactly in the same order. Also, those transistors, obviously there's a front and a back side. If you look at them, one side is flat, the other side is curved, and when you replace them back in the stator, they have to go back in the exact same way. Polarity does matter, because like I said, those 3 legs are they do different things. The emitter, base, and collector. We're not going to go into all that, but they got to be installed correctly. But it is doable. Anybody can replace those. Just, put the new one in exactly the way that you take the old one out, and you'll be good. Let's see what else about these motors. That's pretty much it. Obviously, the axles in these motors, they come in different sizes, different lengths, depending on your dropout. You can have the exact same motor that's made for different bikes, and the dropout will be the length of this axle part, whether that fits in your swing arm. So, make sure when you're ordering a motor, you know the dropout, because you're going to be very upset if you buy a motor and it does not fit on your bike. Some of those places are really hard to exchange the motor, and it'll take forever to get all that handled. Let me see what else you can do. Okay, let's say you have, I talked about this in another video, your motor on your bike is bad. You go and buy a brand new motor that's not laced up. Okay, now instead of removing that old motor by taking all the spokes off and relacing that new motor, you can actually take all the screws out, pull the stator out, do the same thing with the motor on your bike, and just replace the stator and axle into the hub casing that's already still mounted in your wheel, already spoked up. You don't have to take all the spokes off and relace that thing, man. Just pull, the stator. This part is with anything that goes bad is on the stator. The only thing in this case going around the edges are the earth magnets that are glued to the side of the hub. They hardly ever fail, and the only way they can fail is to break or to fall off. So you don't need to replace that. Just replace the stator if you buy a new motor. All right, and you shouldn't really be buying a new motor because honestly, all motors are repairable unless you burn the coils up. Now, these coils, it looks like bare copper wire, but they actually have a plastic residue on them that keeps them from shorting out. It's like the insulation on these copper wires. So they are not bare. They're not touching. Motor wouldn't work like that. So normally when people burn motors up, it's because the motor has gotten extremely overheated and that little plastic residue that's on the copper wires melts off, and then it shorts the motor out. And that's the only motor that you can't repair unless you're going to rewrap the entire motor. Okay. Now, let me tell you something else you can do that, it's not advisable that everyone do it. But let's say you have a 5T motor. You can turn that 5T motor into a 3T motor by just removing two of the turns. Now, is that a pain in the ass? Absolutely, because you'll have to start at the last coil, locate the last coil, and take two turns off of it and go around the whole motor. You can change a 5T into a 3T. Now, you can't add coils to a motor. You can't make a 3T into a 5T, but you can definitely reduce the turns. Let's see, what else? Oh, another thing, just like I was talking about when you replace a motor, just by removing the stator and just sticking it back in your wheel that's already laced up, I'm going to see on that RZ motor if depending on, I don't know if that's actually like a 205 size casing or a 273 size casing. Either way, it's possible that I may already have a 273 or a 205 that is an 8 kilowatt that I can just take the stator out, put the new stator in, put the covers on, and call it a day. All right, y'all, that's pretty much it. Just a little bit on motors. Take it easy, take care. Crisscrossing wires, we out. Peace.